This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build an attractive online presence and kickstart your passion project. Timex is one of the most storied brands in US watchmaking history. Founded back in 1854 as the Waterbury Clock Company, they've had a pretty successful run over the last century and a half. By the 1960s, one of every 3 watches sold in the States was a Timex, due to their low margins and consequently low prices. Unfortunately, the Chinese watch invasion of the late 1970s and 80s all but killed the American watch industry. Timex was hit especially hard by this shift in manufacturing, with their value proposition being made obsolete by the tidal wave of lower priced offerings coming from the East. They were forced to either adapt or die. So, by 2001, the majority of the brand's US watch production had ceased completely, with most manufacturing being relocated abroad. I guess in an attempt to cut costs and maintain some semblance of market share. They had to go back to their roots some way or another. Perhaps no watch better showcases this mentality than the iconic Timex Weekender. This cheap and cheerful piece is known to take a licking but keep on ticking, which has arguably sealed its status as Timex's most popular model ever. When you think of Timex, chances are that you think of the Weekender aesthetic. Despite the success, in the 2020s, I'm not sure Timex would want you to think that way. To find out why, let's run through what this watch offers, and then we'll assess how in some ways this approach may be holding the brand back today. The model I have here is the 38mm Weekender, with an 8.9mm depth and 45.6mm lug-to-lug. This suits my slim 6¼ inch wrist very nicely, though they do make other versions of this watch too. Notably, you have the 40mm Weekender with a slightly different layout and a range of alternatives, including the Weekender chronograph and the Weekender Fairfield watches, which I've covered before. Make sure you drink every time I say Weekender in this video.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out!
All of the options maintain the same brass construction with a chromed finish to give that highly reflective, glossy look. This is a lower end material, which won't last as well as stainless steel in most situations, as it's more susceptible to corrosion. However, I must say Timex has done quite a good job of making this feel like a reasonable quality product. Not quite as good as Squarespace did with their website builder though. Not only did it help us to quickly create an awesome looking Ben's Watch Club blog, but the beauty isn't just skin deep. Behind the scenes, Squarespace provides us with intuitive blogging tools that allow us to share our updates and findings with no hassle. You can then add images, buttons, and more in just a couple of clicks. When post entries are completed, you can set them into one of 4 categories to help maintain a smooth and organized workflow schedule. Their award-winning templates also allow you to auto-post your content to Twitter and Facebook and embed videos from websites like YouTube. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, visit squarespace.com/benswatchclub to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. There's a link in the description in case you forget. When you consider that most watches at this price point are either using brass like this or some type of resin, it's not bad at all. Though you can get other obscure brands with stainless steel cases for a similar price. Though I'll talk more about pricing later because it does vary depending on where you are in the world. It does feature a steel snapback rear, which provides a low 30 meters of water resistance to handle splashes and rain, though swimming is a no-go with this watch. While water performance is below par, the low light capabilities are among the best out there. Introduced in the early 1990s, the infamous Indiglo technology gives some of the brightest visuals when the crown is compressed. This impressive feature is present on all the Weekender watches and can prove very handy in a pinch, something that very few rivals can compete with. Stylistically, it's all in the name. This watch is a casual one designed to be versatile for weekend usage with a variety of different clothing items. So if you want to go full lazy like me with this hoodie in this video, it'll probably still suit it. It has legible bold numbers indicating each hour, with a plain black handset and raised chapter ring housing the minute track. This particular variant has a more modern white dial, though these Weekenders come in a huge variety of colours for maximum flexibility. I'll link this one in the video description so you can take a look, along with a search which will give all of the different combinations. This is aided by the huge range of 20mm straps that you can use to totally transform the aesthetic. Mine came with this basic blue and red NATO strap. As you can guess, these default options are not the best quality, but they're better than I expected considering the incredibly low retail price. I also didn't anticipate the printing on the dial to be quite so precise. I'm in no way claiming this competes with luxury watches.
Better than Rolex.
Obviously it doesn't. However, even at a super macro level, the inking still looks fairly decent. Aside from the case, other factors do show it's a low-end watch. Overall, the dial is very flat with nothing applied at all, even the Timex logo is printed. There's also the odd imperfection, such as tiny bits of dust or dirt under the crystal, which is to be expected when this has cost virtually nothing to make. Most noticeably, of course, is the heavily audible tick, my god. This watch has a mythical status as one of the loudest out there, and by gosh is that true. While the quartz movement within is very accurate and well aligned, at least in this unit's case, the brass housing doesn't do a great job of sound isolation. Good luck trying to sleep with this watch in the room. Despite the flaws, it's still a solid, reliable watch for very little money. In the UK on Amazon, you can grab these for typically under £50 even during the pandemic. But if you're in the US, these will often drop much lower than that. Often you're looking around the $20 to $30 mark, sometimes even less, which makes this watch a much better value proposition in my books. So I'll link it in the description, thanks to Amazon for sending it in as well. You can also pick these up in a variety of department stores for similar prices. Unfortunately, I think that's where some of the issues start to emerge. For decades, Timex has been seen as this cheap, grab-and-go department store brand, because in all honesty, that's how they position themselves in an attempt to survive that Chinese quartz influx. Over the last few years though, Timex has been making efforts to upgrade its public perception by producing some more premium watches alongside many limited edition models, including some mechanical options for the first time in what feels like forever. Despite the great success of some of these forays, such as the popular Q Timex lineup and the substantial improvements in Timex's digital presence, something still looms overhead. It's clear to me that the brand hasn't fully shaken off that cheap grocery store image. You can see it in the comments of some YouTube reviews, with users questioning why anyone would ever consider spending £200 on a Chinese-made quartz Timex watch. To be honest, I think it's a very fair question. Fundamentally, there isn't a huge difference between this weekender and some of these newer watches at 10 times the cost. My dad said something similar a few weeks back when I showed him a more expensive Timex watch. He couldn't understand why you'd pay that much for a Timex. When considering products to purchase in general, we subconsciously assess the brand's image, history, and previous track record to construct our expectations of what they should be like moving forward. I bet that if watches like this weekender didn't exist or never existed, these reservations about the more expensive Timex models wouldn't be quite so strong. Nevertheless, without these budget models, maybe Timex wouldn't be here in 2020. Makes you think, doesn't it? This is an example of a watch that helped save Timex from a bad situation. However, perhaps they would rather you forget it these days. Subscribe if you found the video interesting. I'll see you next time.